There's a piece of audio in this case right now with thousands of people convinced they can hear something buried in the background of a routine emergency call. There's a boat route that doesn't match the story it's been attached to. There's a phone handover that's been described two completely different ways depending on who you ask. And there's a leaked text sitting next to a mother's own on-camera correction of herself. We're not here to tell you what happened to Nolan Wells. Nobody watching this video knows that yet, and neither do we. What we're going to do instead is go through every major claim currently circulating, piece by piece, and tell you plainly which ones are backed by an actual record, which ones are still just testimony from one side, and which ones nobody has verified at all. Confirmed, disputed, or unverified. That's it. That's the whole method. Here's why that matters. This case has moved almost entirely on fragments. A clip here, a screenshot there, and once a piece goes viral, the caveats attached to it tend to disappear a lot faster than the claim does. Two families are living through this in public. So before we play anything or repeat anything, we're going to tell you exactly what it is and isn't. Let's get into it. Let's start with the piece of audio that's driving most of the conversation about this case right now, because it deserves a careful look rather than either a dramatic replay or a dismissal. Here's what's actually confirmed on the record, independent of anyone's interpretation. NBC obtained this recording through a records request. It's the real audio of an emergency tow call placed from the boat Nolan's friends were on the afternoon of July 4th. The tow company's own call log and timestamps are institutional records. They don't come from either family and nobody disputes their existence. The confirmed, audible foreground conversation is straightforward. A young man reports a bilge pump failure, says the boat is taking on water, declines the Coast Guard when it's offered, and states everyone on board is accounted for and in good health. That much isn't in dispute by anyone. Now here's the claim layered on top of that. Online, a version of this same clip has circulated with people convinced that underneath the confirmed conversation, there are muffled background voices. Someone asking if Nolan is dead, someone else being told to check his chest. That interpretation has not been confirmed by NBC, by any other outlet covering this case, by an audio forensics expert, or by law enforcement. Nobody with the actual ability to verify that claim has verified it. As of right now, it sits entirely in the unverified column. We want to be upfront about one more thing before we play this because it matters for how you listen. Once a specific interpretation gets suggested to you about a piece of ambiguous audio, it becomes very hard to hear that same audio any other way, whether or not the interpretation is accurate. That's not a comment on this case specifically, it's just how audio perception works. So we're telling you that going in, not after. Here's the call. Listen for yourself, keep in mind everything we just told you, and remember that what you think you hear in the background is not the same thing as a verified transcript. That's the full clip.
Investigators, either critical details are being overlooked or the public has not been given the complete story. The audio is already authenticated, and if the background statements that I've interpreted are correct, then we are demanding immediate investigation, clear answers, and several arrests. Let's go.
Connect you.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
All right. Well, let's get you going. Membership number or phone number listed on the account, sir.
I don't know the phone number. It's either Jerry Atkerson. I think it's Jerry Atkerson. Try that.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like guaranteed. I don't have the tag on
Unless you
here.
have a membership number or anything, it's okay. I'll get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2.
All right. And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How many? All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
No, we do not need that.
All right. All right. Do you have your current GPS coordinates?
Let me go look.
If not, I can send you a text message.
North. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm available.
North 30 degrees by 4672.
All right, 4672. All right, and you were breaking up a little bit. Can you just repeat it one more time to make sure I have it correct?
Sorry, look.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what?
So you're breaking up. If you need assistance, do you have a VHF radio?
No, we do not have the VHF radio.
All right, well, let's try to get you going because you don't have good cell phone reception. Can you verify your coordinates one more time?
Okay, my coordinates are 30 degrees by 14.684 north, and then west by 88 degrees by 46.79.
Right, looks like you're on Horn Island, correct? Are you
Yes,
on
we are
Horn
at Horn
Island?
Island. Yes.
All right, is the boat sinking or you have it aground?
We were sinking, yes.
Is it aground is the question?
No, we're not aground. We are in 17 foot of water. We're in 31 foot of water.
All right, have to ask. What do you want to do? Do you want to be towed back?
I want to get this boat unsank and towed back, yes.
All right, where would you like it towed to, sir?
You can tow it to Ocean Springs Harbor, or Fort Bayou Launch.
All right, how many adults and children on board?
No, there's no children.
So, is there anybody on board? How many adults, sir? That was the question. Hello, can you hear me?
Try to jump in and pull the plug, Bart, while you're going.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yep, I just need you to answer these questions so I can get you over to the captain.
Okay.
How many adults on board?
There are 0 adults on board.
There's nobody on board the boat?
No. Nobody here is over the age of 21.
Sir, that was not the question. Is there a person? Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Hello?
Is there a living person, someone breathing on the boat? Is there anybody on the boat?
Yes, there's lots of people breathing on the boat.
All right, how many people, sir?
Like 7.
All right, thank you. Does everyone have life jackets on or available to them?
Yes, we have life jackets available.
All right, verify what boat's sinking.
A Triton, 22 foot offshore, 22 foot Triton offshore sea flight hull.
All right. All right. Please hold. I'm transferring you to the local captain now.
Okay, thank you.
This is Captain Seth.
Hi, Captain Seth. This is Vicky from International. How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I apologize ahead of time. I really do. You're going to have a fee-for-service come up under Jerry.
Okay.
It sounds like a bunch of kids on board on Horn Island. He's letting me know that his father's a member, but he can't give me any information. And he's saying the boat is sinking, and he's on Horn Island. It's just unfortunate. He's just a kid. There's a lot going on. So he said there's about a lot of people on board. He says he thinks about 7. I'm guessing they're all under 18. And I'm not trying to be rude. He wants you guys to go out there and unpump the boat and then tow it in.
Do you know what kind of boat it is?
He said a Triton 24-footer, but that's all he can give me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just actually got off the phone with his grandpa, who I'm guessing is the owner of the boat, and he said that Yeah, Jerry. Yeah, he said.
Okay.
I just hung up with him. He said that they don't need any help right now, but if something changes, he'll call me back. So I'm guessing that they may have figured it out, because that's what he said. So they're in a panic and their boat won't crank.
Yeah, they're in a panic. He's saying the bilge is not keeping up. I asked for Coast Guard. He said no, but he's just really upset on the back end. And, I get it. It's a kid. He just doesn't understand.
Oh, okay. Do you still have him on the line?
Yes, I still have him on the line. And, again, I couldn't find he couldn't give me anything regarding his grandfather's, membership, so it's just under Jerry fee for service.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just talked to, if you want to, we're so tied up right now. We can't really do any non-member jobs right now.
Is Jerry a member? Did you find out if he was a member or not?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's his boat or what. I'm not sure what's going on with it. But yeah, transfer the kid over. I'll talk to him, and then I'll call his grandpa back as well.
All right. And did you want me to look up Jerry's membership number or anything like that to see if he's up? I know you guys are
You can try this cell phone number.
All right. Yep. Jerry. Yeah, he's an active member. Hold on.
What kind of boat do you have on there? Same boat?
Yeah, he's one of your members. Yep, 22-foot Triton. All right. I'll just disregard this one. I'm going to send you over an accurate one under this Jerry Ackerson one, okay? He's one of your members. You'll get in a couple minutes, okay?
Okay, perfect. All right. And, yeah, just transfer this kid over whenever you get a chance.
All right. Transferring now. Thank you again, Captain.
All righty.
Stay safe out there. It's crazy. Have a drink.
Oh, it's wild. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, to repeat, the foreground conversation is confirmed and consistent. The background interpretation is not verified by anyone with the authority or tools to actually confirm it, and it's not becoming true the more times it gets repeated online. If an audio forensics expert or law enforcement source ever does authenticate or debunk it, that's a story on its own, and we'll bring it to you the moment it happens. Until then, it stays exactly where it belongs. Unverified, not confirmed, not debunked. Now to the piece of evidence in this case that's actually the hardest one to explain away, because unlike almost everything else we're going to cover today, this one isn't testimony. It's a government record. Here's what's confirmed. GPS data pulled directly from the boat's onboard chart plotter, obtained under law enforcement search authorization, shows the following timeline. The boat left Horn Island at 4:31 p.m. It didn't go straight home. It traveled into Fort Bayou, arriving at 5:52. It returned briefly to the dock at 6:06. It left again at 6:36. It looped out towards St. Martin Bayou. And it wasn't finally pulled from the water until 7:19 that evening, nearly 3 hours after leaving the island, with multiple stops along the way. We want to be clear about why we're putting this in a different category than almost everything else in this video. This isn't a screenshot from someone's phone. It isn't a claim made in an interview. It's chart plotter data obtained through an actual legal process. That makes it the single highest reliability piece of evidence in this entire case, and it's also real. The detour happened. That part isn't in dispute. Here's what is unresolved. Nobody in the friend group has given a detailed, minute-by-minute public explanation for that specific route. That's not a gap invented by media coverage. It's a gap in the actual public record, and as of this video, it's still open. Now, we do need to correct something here because it's a mistake that's been made repeatedly in other coverage, including some interviews with the friend group itself. Warren Hudson's interview does address a boat speed pattern, the account of the motor trim malfunctioning, the boat taking on water in the stern, everyone shifting their weight to the bow to get the boat to plane. That's a real explanation and it's on the record. But it's an explanation for a different claim, the slow then fast speed pattern people noticed in earlier data. It is not an explanation for the multi-stop 3-hour route through Fort Bayou and back that the newer GPS data shows. Those are two separate pieces of evidence. Answering one does not answer the other, and treating them as the same question, which some coverage has done, creates the false impression that this has already been explained. It hasn't. This is the claim that's followed this case since the very beginning, so let's go through it carefully. Here's what's confirmed. A phone handover happened on the night of July 4th. Nobody on either side disputes that this occurred. Warren Hudson's account of it, told across two separate interviews months apart to two different interviewers, has stayed consistent in its basic structure. Nolan left his phone on the boat, It was gathered up along with several other people's phones and moved to Wyatt's truck, and it was handed over that night when Javon's mother asked for it. That consistency is worth noting. Telling the same version of events the same way across multiple interviews, without an interviewer present to cross-check the previous one, is a real data point. But we want to be precise about what kind of data point it is. It's consistency. It is not independent verification. Nobody outside the friend group has confirmed the chain of custody of that phone before it was handed over. Not a witness outside the group, not a forensic record, nothing. So while the story hasn't changed, the story hasn't changed, and the story is confirmed, are two different things, and we're not going to blur them together here. Now the harder part, the deletion claim. Hudson's denial is direct and repeated. Nobody had a reason to get into Nolan's phone, nobody knew his password, nobody touched it before it was handed over. That's a clear statement, and we're not implying it's insincere. But it's important to be exact about what a denial actually is. We had no reason to delete anything is a claim about motive. It is not the same as forensic proof that nothing was deleted. Those are two different categories of claim, and only one of them is something an interview can actually establish. This is also exactly the kind of question that testimony structurally cannot resolve, no matter how many times it's repeated or how consistent it is. The second document we reviewed for this case references a joint forensic phone review, the family's own investigators examining the device alongside law enforcement. That kind of review is the only thing that can actually move this claim out of the unverified column, in either direction. Until that happens, nobody had a reason to, stays a denial on record, not a resolved question. One more thing worth flagging plainly, the framing of this moment, a door described as being pushed open rather than knocked on, a tense, chaotic scene, a phone demanded under pressure, comes from one side's account only. We don't have a counter version from Javon's mother or her family in any of the source material we reviewed for this piece. That doesn't mean the account is wrong. It means it's currently a single source description of a contested moment, and we're labeling it that way rather than letting one side's framing stand in as the full picture. Now let's look at a claim that's been used to push back on one specific narrative, the idea that Nolan's friends stayed silent that night instead of reaching out to his family. Here's what's confirmed. Call log screenshots, described as coming directly from Warren Hudson's phone, show a call placed to Christine Wells at 11:07 p.m. on July 4th. According to that log, she didn't answer the first time. He called back and the two spoke for about 5 minutes. Roughly a minute after that call ended, according to the same log, he called the Coast Guard. If accurate, that would place his outreach to Nolan's mother before any official emergency call was made. That's not the only thread pointing in this direction. A search and rescue volunteer, separate from the friend group and with no apparent reason to coordinate a story, has described a call coming through their organization's channels that same night, connecting their team to Christine on a roughly similar timeline. Two sources describing overlapping outreach independently of each other is worth taking seriously. Here's where we need to be precise about reliability though, because this is a good example of a claim that's stronger than a bare assertion but weaker than hard proof. The call log itself comes from one interested party's personal phone, it was not pulled from a carrier, and it hasn't been independently verified by a neutral third party. That puts it in a meaningfully different tier than the GPS data we covered in segment 2, which came from a government-authorized record with no single party controlling what it shows. A screenshot from someone directly involved in the case is not the same category of evidence as an institutional record, no matter how consistent the timestamps look. So rather than filing this under either confirmed or unverified, we're going to call this one moderately supported. The independent search and rescue account raises its reliability above a bare, uncorroborated claim. But it hasn't cleared the bar of actual independent verification. Something like subpoenaed carrier records would do that. Until that happens, this is a claim with real corroboration behind it, not a settled fact. This next one is the most contested piece we're covering today, and it deserves the most careful handling, because it involves comparing something unverified to something a grieving parent said on camera, and those two things should never be weighed as if they carry equal evidentiary value. They don't, and we're not going to treat them like they do. Let's start with what's actually confirmed. Christine Wells, in an interview, was asked whether she'd heard from the friend's family since attorneys became involved. On camera she said no, that she hadn't spoken to them. That statement exists, it's on the record, and nobody disputes that she said it. Also confirmed. Christine later revisited that statement herself in a separate on-camera appearance, without being confronted with any specific piece of evidence first. In that follow-up, she said she'd misspoken, that 2 or 3 family members had actually reached out with brief messages. One expressing condolences, one saying to call when she was ready, one saying they needed to talk. Now here's the claim layered on top of that. A text message, dated July 7th and attributed to Ashley Cole, described as a stepmother connected to one of the friends and identified as a family law judge, has been shared publicly, reading roughly as an offer for Christine to call her directly. The outlet that shared it says they verified it themselves. No neutral, independent outlet has authenticated it. That puts this text in a distinctly weaker evidentiary category than the call log we just covered in segment 4, at least that had a second, independent source pointing in a similar direction. This has one interested party's word that they checked it. There's also a factual distinction here worth being exact about, because it's easy to blur. Christine's own correction describes brief, cordial outreach, a condolence, a call when ready. The specific claim attached to the leaked text is different in kind, a sitting family court judge directly offering a personal line of contact. Nothing in the source material we reviewed actually confirms these are describing the same event. They may be. They may not be. Treating them as interchangeable would be an assumption, not a finding. And now the framing point that matters most in this entire video. It would be easy to lay Christine's original statement next to this leaked text and let the juxtaposition imply she wasn't being honest. We're not going to do that, and here's why. A parent doing dozens of interviews in the middle of acute grief misstating a timeline detail is common. It is not, by itself, evidence of dishonesty. She corrected herself, unprompted, before this text ever became public. A voluntary, on-camera self-correction carries real weight, and it should be treated with the same good faith we'd extend to anyone else's account in this case. Meanwhile, the leaked text sits in the opposite position, unverified by anyone outside the party who shared it. Stacking a self-correction against an unverified leak as though they're equally strong evidence isn't fact-checking. It's letting a weaker source borrow credibility from a stronger one just by sitting next to it. We're not doing that here. Before we get into this segment, one label needs to sit over the whole thing. Everything in these two interviews, Warren Hudson's and the second friend's, is testimony, not evidence. It's what two people said on camera to interviewers they chose. That's worth something. It's not worth the same thing as a phone record or a GPS log, and we're going to treat it accordingly. Start with where the two accounts line up. Both friends independently describe Nolan as fully embedded in a friend group that included Black, mixed race and Hispanic friends, not as an outlier in an all-white circle. That description shows up consistently across two separate interviews, given months apart, to two different interviewers. That consistency is genuinely worth noting. It's also worth noting something else that's sitting right there in the source material itself. Both subjects state directly that they chose to speak with the interviewers they chose because those interviewers had already publicly taken their side. That's not a hidden inference, it's something they say out loud on camera as their own stated reasoning. That doesn't make what they said untrue. But it does mean these weren't neutral venues, and a consistent account given twice to sympathetic interviewers is a different thing than a consistent account given under independent cross-examination. Both facts can be true at once, and we're naming both. Now, where the two accounts actually intersect on the timeline, and where they just don't overlap at all, which is a different thing than agreeing. One friend's account centers on a physical altercation on the island and leaving shortly after it. The other's account centers on the search effort the following morning, and a series of phone calls the night Nolan went missing. These aren't competing versions of the same moment. They're describing different windows of time from different physical locations on the same day. That means they don't contradict each other, but it also means they're not corroborating each other either. Two people describing two different things that don't conflict is not the same as two people confirming one thing did happen. We want to be precise about that distinction rather than letting the stories match, stand in for something it isn't. One specific detail is worth pulling out on its own, because it's a useful example of how a claim can sound like a fact while actually being several steps removed from anyone who witnessed it. Hudson states that Nolan was seen alive around 6 p.m., 3 hours after his own group had left the island. But by his own account he didn't see this himself. He says he was told this by someone else who isn't named in the interview. That makes this claim hearsay within testimony, not Hudson lying, not Hudson necessarily wrong, but a second-hand account with no name source behind it, being repeated as though it settles when Nolan was last seen. It doesn't settle that. It's a lead, not a fact. Last thing in this segment, the claims about media treatment. One friend describes his ABC interview as edited in a way he felt distorted what he said, and contrasts it favorably with a separate Rolling Stone interview. That's worth including because it's part of his account of his own experience. But it needs the same label as everything else here. This is one person's characterization of another outlet's editorial choices. We haven't compared it against the original ABC piece ourselves for this segment, so we're presenting it as his perspective, not as a verified account of how that story was produced. What's confirmed? The aerial photo is real. It was taken by a pilot who flew over Horn Island that day, and it does show a large, dense cluster of boats along the island's shoreline. The general scale described in it, hundreds of boats, a heavy holiday crowd, is also consistent with what both friends independently described in their interviews, which is a small but real point of agreement between the photo and the testimony. What's not confirmed? The specific numbers attached to it. Estimates like 400 to 500 people in one section, or thousands across the island, are exactly that, estimates, offered by people who were there, not account from any authority or agency. They may well be roughly accurate. They're also not something we can verify as precise. Here's the part worth sitting with for a second because it cuts in two directions at once, and we don't want to leave you with just one of them. A crowd that size means the idea that Nolan simply couldn't have encountered anyone outside his original group becomes harder to rule out. That's a real point. But it cuts the other way too. A large, busy crowd doesn't establish that anything happened, and it doesn't clear anyone in the friend group either. It just means the isolated island, small group, assumption that shaped a lot of early public reaction wasn't accurate. That's what this photo actually tells us. Nothing more. Two things on this list would actually move the case forward if they happen. A joint forensic review of Nolan's phone and any real forensic authentication, one way or the other, of that background audio. Everything else on here is either already about as resolved as it's going to get, or waiting on one of those two things. That's the full breakdown. We didn't tell you what happened to Nolan Wells because nobody watching this knows that yet, including us. What we did was give you a way to tell the difference between a government record, a consistent denial, and an anonymous leak so that the next claim that goes viral in this case, you'll already know which column to put it in. If this case moves forward, if that phone review actually happens, if anyone puts real forensic analysis on that audio, if a named witness comes forward about that 6 p.m. sighting, we're going to bring it to you the same way we just walked through everything today, sourced, labeled, and without telling you what to conclude before you've seen it yourself. That's the actual point of this channel. Not who's guilty. Not who's lying. Just an honest answer to one question. What do we actually know right now and what are we still just guessing at? If that's useful to you, subscribe because this case isn't close to over, and most of what comes next is going to show up first as a screenshot or a clip with no context attached. We'll be the ones adding the context back in. Two families are waiting on real answers here. The least we can do while they wait is not hand you a fake one.